Shalom Aleichem. We are in Hilchot Deot, the Rabbeinu Gadol Rambam, Zichrono Livracha. Perek Shishi. I believe Halacha Gimel. I will share the screen now. So, at the beginning of Hilchot Deot, in the list of mitzvot in a Torah that are dealt with in this section, the second mitzvah was lehidabek biyoda'o. The second mitzvah was lehidabek biyoda'o, which means to associate with and connect oneself with those who know HASHEM. This may sound, to some, very pretentious. Who can know HASHEM? According to the Torah, it is possible to know HASHEM to the extent that a human being is capable of such understanding and such and such closeness, but it is only possible through the Torah, living the Torah, learning the Torah, and living the Torah. Linmod v'la'asot. So we are not squeamish about making such a claim that it is possible to come close to HASHEM. And those who spend their lives, their time studying the Torah as described by the Chachamim over many years. And this study of Torah is based on the correct set of principles and assumptions that underpin the study of and the understanding of the Torah correctly. This will inexorably lead to what Rambam described here at the beginning of Hilchot Deot, the second mitzvah, lehidabek biyoda'o. Rambam did not choose this wording by chance. Yoda'o, those who know him, who know HASHEM. Because Rambam most certainly believed, and we're about to see the Mishneh also makes this statement very clearly, that true Chachamim are close to HASHEM. And this is what we see now if you look in Perek Shishi, which I believe you can see on the screen. Halacha Gimel or Bet, depending on your edition. Misvat aseh lidabek b'hachamim. Why? Kedei limod mima'asehem. This, of course, also places a great responsibility on the Hachamim, that their behavior be such that it does not lead to chas v'shalom, the opposite, as we saw in Hilchot Yesodei Torah. second. In Hilchot Yesodei Torah Perek Hamishi, we saw, perhaps I'll share the screen with you. At the beginning of the Perek, Kol Bet Yisrael Mesurim Al Kiddush Hashem HaGadol Hazeh. All of Am Yisrael, every Jew, is mechuyav, is commanded, is required, Kadesh Shem Hashem. Shene'emar v'nikdashti b'atoch b'nei Yisrael. Muzharim shelo lehalalo. And we are also warned not to desecrate Hashem's name in any way. Shene'emar v'lo tehalalu Hashem Qodshi. And this is true for every Jew. It is even more so for Talmidei Chachamim. As Rambam writes here towards the end of this perek, הלכה י"ד או י"א, ויש דברים אחרים שהם בכלל חילול השם. There are other things that are considered to be בכלל חילול השם. They fall within the purview of this concept, even though it's not the classic case of חילול השם. והוא שיעשה אדם גדול בתורה ומפורסם בחסידות, if an individual who is known to be a great scholar of Torah, gadol b'Torah, umfusam b'hasidut, known to be very righteous. Such a person does devarim shaburiot merananim aharo b'shvila. If he does things, he behaves in certain ways that cause other people to speak ill of him or to raise their eyebrows. Such as, so then in such a case, even though technically there's no avera involved, such a thing leads to hilul Hashem when people speak in such a way of a Chacham who is identified with the Torah. Such as a person, such a man purchases something from a store owner and does not pay immediately, even though it's clear to all that he has the money. But he, for whatever reason, deliberately delays paying. So that store owners are constantly having to remind him, you owe me a certain amount of money, and he keeps putting them off. Or that such a person is seen to be very happy to be in the company of Amei Ares as long as there's food and drink on the table. And of course, one should mention that being in the company of such people almost certainly means that one is is in a place which is described as a Moshav Litzlim in the pasuk in the first perek of Tehillim, of Moshav Litzlim lo yashav. And the Mishneh in Masechet Avot Perek Shelishi speaks about Shnaim sheyashavu b'shulchan echad, two Jews who sit together, who meet together they share a meal, shall we say. وَإِن بَنَهَمْ دِبْرَ Torah. That's a Moshav Lesim. So even you would think on what seems to be very innocent and minor things can be Hilul Hashem. So we return to Hilchot Deot, Perek Shishi. So we said, מצוות עשה להידבק בחכמים כדי ללמוד ממעשיהם, שנאמר ובו תדבק, וכי אפשר לאדם להידבק בשכינה. Chazal asked this question, of course. How can one do this? How can one achieve this kind of attachment to Hashem? אלא כך אמרו חכמים בפירוש מצווה זו. This is how the Chachamim explained this mitzvah. Hidabek b'hachamim u'tamidehem. So in fact, it's not only just the Hachamim, the great Hachamim themselves. They're students as well, who walk in their footsteps and follow their path. Other people can learn from them also, and should. לפיכך, צריך אדם להשתדל שיישא בת תלמיד חכמים וישיא ביתו לתלמיד חכמים. And for this reason, a man should do his utmost to marry the daughter of a Talmid Chachamim, because such a woman is familiar with a lifestyle, with a home that is based on Torah. That is the assumption. وَيَسِيبْ بِتَوْ لَتَلْمِيدْ حَخَمِيمْ. And likewise, he should marry his daughter off to such a young Talmid Chachamim for the same reason. And he should spend his time, including eating and drinking, with such people, with Talmidei Chachamim. And the hope is that this will ensure that his children, his grandchildren, will be influenced and will follow in this path, and he himself will be constantly challenged and encouraged to learn from their example. Based on a Greek word which means business, to do business, commerce, in other words, where possible, to help them out in such matters. For example, as in fact was the case in Rambam's own personal case, in his own family. His brother Deot was a very successful merchant, and for many years he was able to support his own family and Rambam's family from the earnings, profits from his business. He traveled by sea, apparently to India and other places, the spice trade and what have you, very lucrative trade. And this continued for many years until, unfortunately, Rambam's brother was lost at sea and was never seen again. And this was a tremendous blow to the Rambam. Oh, no question, it was also a financial blow to him. And this is why he was forced to become the doctor to the Sultan in Egypt, which Rambam did not do because he enjoyed it, as he writes in some of his letters, but because he had to. So that's one example. Another example is if Talmid Chachamim has a sum of money, and if there's someone who can receive that amount of money and do some business, contract some business with it, and make a profit, and that profit will go to the Talmid Chachamim. That is called La'asot Parak Matiyah L'Talmidei Chachamim. It's a very proper and very correct thing to do. It also means to buy from and to sell, to sell to a Talmid Chachamim, perhaps at a reduced price, or to help him out in certain ways, or that people should purchase from him if he has a store, shall we say. This was also not unknown at all amongst Talmidei Chachamim, that either they themselves and sometimes their wives ran a store, and people of understanding made a point to purchase from that store, so that they would be supporting this Talmid Chachamim. This was true of the Hafez Hayim's wife, and this was true of the Chazon Ish's wife, for example. Rambam continues, and to join oneself to them in all ways, in all manner of, all types of interaction. To attach yourself to Hashem. And thus they said in the Mishneh Masechet Avot, literally sit in the dust at their feet, in the dust, and drink their words with thirst. Halacha Daled or Gimel. Miswa an kol adam lehog that kol ehad v'ehad miYisrael kerufo. It is a mitzvah for every Jew to love and care for every other Jew, to see him as his brother, as his colleague, as he does himself, as he treats himself, as he attempts to do and achieve the best for himself, so he is to do with regards to every other person, every other Jew that he is able to help and to bring some benefit to. Thou shalt love, it is often translated as love thy neighbor as thyself. Not an exact translation. Re'acha, Chazal, in many places, refers to Re'acha, but the Torah of Miswot. A fellow Jew who is your colleague, who is similarly dedicated to the Torah and the Miswot as you are. That's a Re'ah. Re'ah is a good friend, literally. As it often happens, such ideas, such pasukim, such halachot are frequently misunderstood. Sometimes simply misunderstood because the people in question do not know very much, and sometimes deliberately twisted by certain people who perhaps know more or should know more, to mean or to imply all kinds of things. Which is why in an interview that the high priest of the legal junta in this country, known as Cold Justice Aaron Barak, in his recent interview, mentioned that that's Judaism, which is of course why he used this concept in Judaism to benefit the enemies of the Jewish people and harm Jews. This is frequently the case. The Torah does not apply to and does not fit all the various agendas and ideologies that some people would like to attach to it. And we should be aware of that fact, that they are misusing the Torah. Lefichach, says Rambam, Tzarich sheyisaper b'shivho v'lahus ala mamono. כמו שהוא חס על ממון עצמו ורוצה בכבוד עצמו. Therefore, because a Jew is commanded to care for and do everything in his power to help him and to assist him in every way. Therefore, he should always speak well of his fellow Jew, and never the opposite, obviously, as we will see. And he should also, in every way, attempt to protect his property. And certainly not cause him any harm, as he does with regards to his own property. As a person looks out for himself, for his own property and money and financial interests, and also for his own standing and respect. He doesn't. No person wishes to bring disrepute upon himself, and no person wishes to harm his or detract from his financial standing. Excuse me. This is why, no doubt, 2 or 3 years ago, the body called here the Bagatz, the Israeli Supreme Court, no doubt attempting to live up to these ideas and stipulations in this halakha, why they took there were 9 homes built in right near here where I live in Gush Etzion, homes that were built according to the claim of some. In some cases, they were built just beyond a certain line, or some imaginary line that someone claimed that was supposed to be the limit of the building permit or something. In some cases, we were talking about 40 centimeters over the line, and certain Yishmaelim claimed, but were unable to prove in any way that the land belonged to them. Nevertheless, the Bagatz decided that these homes had to be destroyed. So 9 homes were destroyed because of the miswa of V'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, apparently. And of course, in this manner, they were clearly concerning themselves with the property of their fellow Jews. Another example of the implementation of this halakha by certain people. وَمِثْكَبَدْ بِكْلَونْ حَوَرُو, and he who deliberately takes advantage of the fact that his fellow Jew is now seen to be seen to disadvantage, that he is now embarrassed by something, shall we say. And another Jew tries to turn this to his advantage and increase his own honor or benefit in some way. And lo helek l'olam haba, such a person has no helek l'olam haba. Now, Rambam says in Hilchot Teshuvah, This is Hilchot Shuvah Perek Gimel. Halacha Yod Daled or Waw. Here Rambam says, "Wa'elu she'en lahem halak l'olam haba." Here we have a list of Jews who have no portion l'olam haba, in the world to come. Ela nichrafim u'ovadim u'nidonim al godel rish'am v'hatatham le'olam u'le'olami olamim. But rather they are cut off, they die, they are cut off, and they are punished for all time. And the list is lengthy. And amongst included in this list we have, towards the end, we have Ba'alei Lashon Hara, for example. And these are all very serious categories. In other words, people who are guilty of very serious crimes, such as the ones mentioned here: minim, epikorosim, kofarim b'Torah, mishumadim. In other words, people who deliberately, with forethought and malice, act not in accordance with the Torah, who make it clear that they deliberately desecrate the Torah and transgress the Torah. These are all very serious categories. And the Rambam goes on to say later in this perek, in Halacha Kaf Daled or Yod Daled, here we have, Rambam says, Kol echad v'echad mi'arba'a v'esrim anoshim elu, each of these 24 types, categories of people, shemonino, that we just mentioned, af al pi shehen Yisrael, even though they are Jews, ein lahem halak l'olam haba, even though we know kol Yisrael yesh lahem halak l'olam haba. So even though every Jew has a halak l'olam haba, these people have lost their halak. Now Rambam continues, v'yesh averot kalot me'elu, and there are also other less serious averot, crimes. Af al pi chen omeru hachamim sheharagil b'hem en lo halak l'olam haba. The Chachamim said with regards to such people that they have no halak l'olam haba. Kedei litrahek mehen u'lehizaher mehen. In other words, Rambam is telling you that the following categories that we are about to mention, which are less serious than the 24 mentioned in this perek earlier, nevertheless, the Chachamim said about the people who do these things that they have no halak l'olam haba. This was kedei la'ayem, in other words, to threaten, to warn people off, and tell people very forcefully not to behave in such a way. In other words, they do have a halak l'olam haba, but kedei litrahek mehem u'lehizaher mehen, the Chacham used this expression, and there are a number of such cases where the Chacham used this expression, that so and so has en lo halak l'olam haba, even though it is not literally the case. That's what Rambam tells us here, and these are those cases. He who refers to his fellow Jew by some kind of disparaging nickname, or that others came up with such a nickname for him, and he uses this term. He who deliberately embarrasses a fellow Jew in public. He who deliberately points out his wisdom, his own wisdom or his own achievements, and compares this to others in order to sing his own praises and disparage other people or belittle them. He who speaks disparagingly of Talmidei Chachamim. This is a very serious thing. And he who speaks in a disparaging way makes light of his Rabbanim, those who taught him Torah. That he does not properly show respect and treat the Yamim Tovim and Chol HaMoed as they should be treated in terms of special food and dress and study of Torah during those days. Referring to korbanot, but basar korbanot, the meat of korbanot which are eaten, he treats them in a light-headed manner. So we return now to Hilchot Deot. אהבת הגר, הלכה ה' או ד', אהבת הגר שבא ונכנס תחת כנפי השכינה. שתי מצוות עשה. There were two מצוות עשה involved in how we relate to a ger tzedek, to a non-Jew who converts for the right reasons, who is a sincere ger tzedek. We are required to care for this person as we would ourselves and any other Jew. Ahat mipnei shehu bichlal re'in, because he is now one of us. Wa'ahat mipnei shehu ger, and the other because he is also a ger. Wa'hat Torah amara wa'avtem et hager, and Torah explicitly states there is a mitzvah to look out for the ger, because the ger is alone. The ger feels very often strange. He hasn't got many people to whom he can turn. Not many people perhaps looking out for him in various ways. And therefore we are responsible, and we are required to do something about this. Siwa ala habat hager kamoshe siwa ala habat shemo. HaShem uses a similar language, a similar terminology with regards to Ahavat HaShem himself and Ahavat Hager. Shneimar, V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, Chodesh Baruch Hu Asmo Ohev Gerim. Shneimar Ohev Ger. HaShem is also described as being Ohev Ger, and therefore we are commanded to do the same. And the opposite of all this is also true. The next halacha, wow, hey, Kol Hasoneh Ehad Yisrael Belibo, he who hates a fellow Jew in his heart. You shall not hate your brother, which is like re'acha, similar term, your fellow Jew in your heart. There is no malkuyot for this. The avera is simply the mental or emotional act of hatred in itself, which doesn't involve any physical action. He who strikes his fellow Jew or curses him, we discussed this on another occasion, and we shall continue. When one Jew in some way sins against another Jew, he insulted him, for example, or caused him embarrassment. He didn't mean to, perhaps, but that's what happened. He should not be silent. As it says with regards to Rashaim, that they bear this grudge, and later it manifests itself in various ways. As it says with regards to Avshalom and Amnon. Amnon, of course, raped Tamar, and Avshalom never forgave him, and didn't speak to him about it either. So we see explicitly he hated Amnon. He is required to tell him and say, why did you do this to me? Why did you sin against me in this particular matter? So the Torah instructs us to discuss and to raise such a matter with our fellow Jew. Again, it's amithecha. Amithecha is another word for your colleague, your fellow Jew, who is similarly committed to Torah mitzvot. And therefore, there is reason to assume that if you point out to him that such a thing happened, he will regret it, and he will do whatever has to be done. Excuse me. And if this person, having been informed of this thing, asked to be forgiven, he must do so. And he who is being asked to forgive must not refuse to do so. With regards to Avimelech, Abraham actually prayed for Avimelech, even though Avimelech had sinned against him. And therefore, from this miswa, we learn the following. Halacha Zayin, or Het or Zayin. He who sees his fellow Jew sinning in some way, even though it's not technically perhaps an avera, but it is an improper mode of behavior, or something that will lead to things which are asur. Miswa la haziro lemutav. It is a miswa to try and correct him. To inform him. First of all, he's harming himself. This is also a miswa ta'aseh in the Torah. At the beginning of Hilchot Deot, Rambam mentioned this. This is a miswa. The sixth miswa, lehochiach, to chastise and to inform. First of all, it's about informing a person. Perhaps the person doesn't know, is unaware that this is wrong, this is asur. Now Rambam continues, halacha teth, or continuation of Zayin. Hamochiach et havero, ben bidvarim shebeno leveno, ben bidvarim shebeno leven hamakom. Whatever the avera in question is, whether it's between this person and this other Jew, or he sees that this person is doing something else which is asur, which is entirely between himself and Hashem, really. This should be done, first of all, in private, so as not to embarrass him. As we said before, it is asur to embarrass another Jew, and we will see more about this in a moment. And you should speak to him in a gentle and measured way. and inform him. Sheno omer lo ela letobato. He's only saying this in order to do for his own welfare, for his own benefit. And to make to ensure that he will not have anything holding him back from receiving his just sachar, his reward. If he accepted this, wonderful. He should do the same again, rebuke him again, and explain to him. And he's required to do so until the person strikes him and gets angry at him and says, I don't want to hear what you have to say to me. Even if he doesn't literally strike you, but he screams at you, he shouts at you, he attacks you verbally, he makes it absolutely clear that he is not interested in hearing what you have to say. This is the case. He was able to do so, to tell others, tell them off, rebuke them, chastise them for what they are doing. What does that mean? Because not everyone is in such a position. Perhaps they won't care what he has to say. Who are you to tell me what to do? But if a person who is looked up to perhaps will say something, perhaps they will take note. Well, therefore, he who is in a position to do so must do so. And if he doesn't do so, he himself is considered to be responsible for these things that are going on. Because he is able to do something about it. Where one is not able to do anything, one is patur. המוכיח את חברו תחילה. לא ידבר לו קשות. In other words, tehila means for the first time that you approach this person and you speak to him and tell him, I want to let you know that this is wrong and you are making a mistake and you are treading an improper path. Tehila, when he first speaks to him, lo yadaber lo kashot ad she'yachli menu. He should not speak to him in a harsh manner so that he will be embarrassed or taken aback. Because the pasuk also says in that context, lo thisa'u alo het. You are not to sin against him by that act of tochaha, of rebuking, of chastising. And thus the Chachamim explained this mitzvah. Yachol at mochiho ufano mishtano. You might think that it's necessary to rebuke the person again the first time, even though he will be embarrassed. Pano mishtanot means his visage will change. In other words, he will be greatly embarrassed. Tamud lomar or tilmod lomar v'lo alo het. No, you must not do so. You must not sin against him. Mikan she'asur la'adam la'achlim et Yisrael v'chol sheken b'rabim. So you see from the fact that the Torah mentions this in the context of rebuking, chastising a fellow Jew, that you are not allowed to embarrass your fellow Jew and cause him to feel disparaged and hard done by. We learn from this that in general it's asur to do such a thing, even if it's not within the context of any such tochaha. Mikan she'asur la'adam la'achrim et Yisrael v'chol sheken b'rabim. It is asur from we see that it's asur to cause embarrassment and or cause a person to feel slighted or hard done by in any way, any fellow Jew. And even if this is done one-on-one, How much more so if it is barabim? Afal pisha hamachlim et havero, Rambam says, now this is Yod Aleph for continuation of Het. Afal pisha hamachlim et havero enoloke, even though this Isur does not involve Malkuyot, one cannot be whipped by a Beit Din for this. Awon gadolhu, it is a great sin. You should not take it lightly. The fact that you are not required to be whipped by a Beit Din for so doing doesn't mean it's not a serious matter. He who causes his fellow Jew to literally to whiten his face. This is because people often, when embarrassed, particularly in public, they become pale, or their complexion changes in some way. As we said before, not literally so, but it's because it is so hamur, the Chachamim use this language to warn people off. Therefore, the person must be very careful, be very aware of such a possibility of being malbin paneh havero, of causing such embarrassment or extreme unpleasantness or discomfort to a fellow Jew. You should always be aware of the possibility of doing something, and therefore think before saying or doing something. This is also true for a child. A child cannot be embarrassed, should not be treated in such a way, of course, as well. He should not refer to him in a way which causes him embarrassment. For example, if he's about teshuvah, another person should not deliberately point out to him, you used to be such and such, you used to behave in such a way, and then you did teshuvah. This, of course, will not cause this person to feel good about himself. Or usually it will not. Perhaps in some cases a person may say that that's precisely why I'm so proud of myself that I changed my ways. But generally, the average person will not feel very happy if he's referred to in such a way by others. That's one example. Another example would be if he's a ger tzedek, to mention this unnecessarily, if it's lirnai, if it's being mentioned in such a way that it is understood, it's intended to be a slight. Nor should he relate in his presence something which will cause him embarrassment. And because these things can happen in many different situations, one has to be very circumspect and always think before one opens one's mouth. Bameh devarim amurim, halacha yod bet. Bameh devarim amurim bidvarim sheben adam lahavero. This is all true with regards to things, relations and actions between two Jews. Avar b'divrei shamayim, but with regards to things that have to do with kavod shamayim, in other words, a person is doing something which is a kind of hilul Hashem, or is flaunting the fact that he doesn't care, doesn't consider himself obligated to do as the Torah dictates. Im lo hazar bo b'sefer, if told about this, if rebuked in private, and this did not help, machlemim of barabim, it is sometimes necessary to deliberately embarrass the person, because this is the only thing that will put an end to this. And it is quite the opposite. We deliberately inform the community and the public of this person's behavior. When we speak lightly of him and call him by various names. ומחרפים אותו בפניו ומבזים ומקללים עד שיחזור למוטב כמו שעשו כל הנביאים לישראל. And how do we know this is correct? Because this is what we see throughout the Torah. We see this in the Torah with regards to Anshe Sodom wa Amorah, for example. We see that all the Nevi'im were mukhihim, they rebuked and they told Am Yisrael off, and they specified their averot, their sins, sometimes in great detail, in very strong language. Sometimes in such strong language that there were Tanaim who felt that certain passages in the Nevi'im, such as in Yehezkel, should not be read as a haftarah because they speak in such strong terms against the Jewish people. So we see that, on the one hand, speaking ill of others, rebuking others in public, embarrassing them, all these things are most definitely asur. This is the general rule. But as with many rules, there are exceptions, and there are also clear exceptions to these rules. So when people express views which are clearly in negating the Torah or contradicting the Torah, and that fact in itself is a Hilul Hashem, that people are barefaced enough to stand up and be known, be recognized in public, and say things which are completely wrong and misleading. We should not be silent. Because that silence can be interpreted as is either agreement or at least, people have the right to their opinion or something of that sort. I'll end with this for today. If a person was in some way, someone sinned against him, someone did something which he should not have done towards this person, but he chose not to say anything, not to say a word. Why? Because he knows this person is a Deot. Now, the word Deot, we know, comes from a Greek word which means a simple, common person, usually something of an ignoramus, and therefore this person just doesn't understand. And even if you tell him why it was wrong, he may well not understand. So if a person chooses, let's say a Talmid Chachamim is slighted by an Am Haaretz, a Tipesh, who just shoots his mouth off and says things that are asur, and it's a serious thing. Levazot Talmid Chachamim, for example. But the Talmid Chachamim knows that this person is a Deot, which of course is the same word, it's related to the English word idiot. Is very much Deot, or we know that exactly what we spoke of before. He has his whole philosophy, his whole outlook is wrong. His ideologies are he may think it's Torah, but it's not based on Torah. This, of course, is a tremendous danger. Everybody knows that if a person gets up and says it's okay to Halal Shabbat b'fer Hesyah, everyone understands that that's not a Torah position. But there are many things nowadays that many people will do and will justify, and many people see that lichora, people who are Dati Jews, religious Jews, are doing. Why are they doing this? Because da'ata meshubeshet, their understanding is completely incorrect. They have all these assumptions and ideas which they have imbibed and internalized from extraneous foreign sources, and somehow they assimilate this within their lifestyle, and they believe it's okay. So if a person knows that this is the case, and therefore this person forgives this person, doesn't bear a grudge, and didn't say anything to him at all, that is not wrong. That's beseder gamur. That's even praiseworthy. In other words, when the Torah said you must respond, you must say something to this person, rebuke him, tell him that he did something that hurt you or that was wrong or he is mistaken. The hashash is always dafka mishum ben adam lehavero, that there should not, that as a result of this, there should not be a reality of sin'ah, of mastema, of hatred or bearing a grudge or having a very negative opinion of this other person. The Torah is trying to prevent that. But if the person knows there's nothing to talk about with this person, unfortunately, it's better that I say nothing. Nothing good will come of it. Then what is there to say?
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.